What's up, guys? Weatherman here. Welcome back. This is coding vlog number 8. I apologize. I haven't seen you guys in, let's say about 2 weeks. I've been focused pretty heavily on stuff here at school and at home and learning React. So today that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about what we've done with React.js at GA, how I'm feeling, how everything's progressed, and go over one of my homework assignments. This, I'm not allowed to show the actual GA code repos, but since this one was all written by me and I created the React app myself with, thought I heard a clicking there, with none of GA's actual code, I can go ahead and show you whatever I want. So, as far as class in general, I feel like we've come a long way. At the beginning, I was a little skeptical. People were really holding up the class with all sorts of what I would consider to be dumb questions. And some people were really struggling, but I feel like everyone who I thought was struggling 2 or 3 weeks ago has now really come into their own and started to pick up the material without too much difficulty. I mean, there have been times where, of course, things do slow down, but for the most part, everything's just kept right on trucking. It's been okay. React was an interesting subject to get into. We were told that we were going to learn function-based architecture before class-based, or component-based architecture before class-based, because I guess we don't really use classes a whole lot anymore. And then that was the impression we were given for like a week and a half, and now it was told to us today that whenever we move on to Ruby and Rails in the next unit, that we are going to end up needing classes for Ruby. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, I guess. Anyway, so showing you what we did here in this assignment is probably going to be the best way to show you what I've learned over the last 2 weeks. So let's talk about the topics here. If we take a look into our app.js here, you'll see that we're using route. We're using routes for everything we have here. And we also ended up, we look over at our index.js, I think I might have, nope, that's just browser router to make the route come in fine. I am using a components folder for all of my components to show, and the services was the most recent revelation that we got, which is good. So let's talk about what this application does. This was using an API framework type application called Airtable. I'd never heard of it, so if you haven't used it, basically, and it might have more functionality than what I'm aware of, but we can input data into a table, and it will create an API for us. So in this particular case, let's see, this one is my recipes API. So this is basically just a cookbook. You can add a recipe, you can edit a recipe, remove the recipe, and this uses get, post, and delete requests. And I believe put requests as well to update these forms and the API. So let's just talk through the hierarchy of the app. So over in app.js, you can see we've defined our overall structure here. We've got a nav bar at the top of the page. We've got a home page. We've got a recipe page. We've got a show more, show details page for each recipe. And then we've got a form to edit the recipe. So the first piece of data here that I'd like to highlight, if you're not familiar with, is this is called a slug. It's basically a way that we can pass in a variable and it will grab whatever's in the URL bar up top. So basically what I've done here is made it so that my recipes are links that can be clicked, and whenever you click them, they will change the address bar to say, localhost 3000 / show more / that particular recipe's ID, which will then link us over to the show more or the edit. Now, if we go into our home page here, we went with, we import use state, use effect, link, and get recipes. We learned how to use state with use state in this unit. So we're going to use some state to grab our recipes out of the API using a get request. So that's this here. And the reason we're so shorthanded here is because we actually have most of our async functions over here in this separate file. So I've got my API keys stored in environmental variables, which we learned how to do a couple days ago. the base URL to make our requests, the headers that are required to give the authorization, and then files or functions to get a recipe individually for whenever we're trying to edit it, or get the recipe list as a whole for whenever we just want to display them all, and then the same thing, set a recipe, and then delete. So that's that. The home page is just going to take the array of recipes that gets returned from the API call and use a .map to go through, and for each recipe we're going to return a link shown as an H3 that will have the title of the recipe. From there, if we click one of those links, we will get thrown to the show more page, where we used some more state and the params for that slug that we were talking about. This function I do not believe put over into that index.js file. I did not get. This was just a homework from the other night, and a couple of the API calls were a little different, so I couldn't figure that one out exactly. So what we're doing in this one is just a, I believe, show more. So this is going to be still another GET request, and all it's going to do is display all of the additional information the recipe has: the title, the ingredients, the steps to make it, and there's also an edit button which will link to the edit page, as well as a delete button that will delete that particular ID from the array. Moving on over to the, let's go to the delete button first. Just a real quick delete request to the API, and whenever the button is clicked, we'll also use history to go back to the home page once that's been clicked. Moving over to edit recipe, this is one of the longer ones. The ones that are using the form, the new recipe and the edit recipe, are both a little bit longer, because I haven't really learned how to reuse state like this, because each one of them is going to have all of that state. So this one is going to go ahead and we're going to make our GET request to get the individual recipe, and then we are going to set our title, ingredients, and steps so that it pre-populates them. So it's going to pop up with a form, and whatever is currently in the API is going to be populated onto those lines for edit, so that we don't have any mistakes. Then we create our new object, and then we can push the new object back up into the API, and again we use history once it's been submitted to go back to the show more detail once that's been. And then we have our form component being called here, just passing in the title, ingredients, steps, and a handle submit function. The new recipe page is going to be exactly the same, just instead of editing, we're creating a new. And then our form was about the most straightforward thing, because all it is form inputs. So we've just got to use some state to change the value of whatever's in here so that it can be read by the API call. And that's about it. So all said and done, we want to look at a completely non-styled mess because I didn't give a shit. We go ahead and boot that up from my server. Oh. Well, that's... There we go. Alright, so I've just got a couple recipes here. So if I go ahead and bring it up, we've got our home page here that has our recipes. If I click pizza, you can see that it takes us to the pizza recipe. If I want to, I can edit it. We'll just change that to pizza pie. Okay. And back. Now it's pizza pie. I don't feel like deleting the recipe, so what I am going to do is create a new one as a test. We create it, we get yanked right back here, and if I want to delete it, I can do that as well. And that's basically the idea. And if we're here, the home button also works to take. I didn't put any styling on this. This was just like an hour-and-a-half build, just to get the concept down. And I have been working with Tailwind CSS for about the last day and a half or so, just getting it set up and trying it out a little bit here and there. I haven't really put any time into it. But for my second project, which is starting this week, I'm going to be just kind of expanding on this idea, I've decided to make a family cookbook so that my mom and my grandma and my dad and whoever can put recipes into my API. And I'll just spend since I've pretty much got the idea built out right now, kind of feels like a cheat, but I mean, is what it is. I couldn't really come up with any ideas, and then I thought, you know what would be useful? My dad loves to use a smoker all the time, and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with it, so what the hell? Why not have it so that my dad can put his recipes in, and then I can use them on my phone too? So I'm going to spend most of my week, after I've gotten a couple finishing touches put on this, because it's not super polished. I have to get my README file set up, get the repo opened. I'll probably rebuild this from scratch just for some more practice. It'll take me an hour or two. And then I will spend most of my week messing with Tailwind. I'll be styling this entire application using Tailwind and possibly some Flexbox or Grid. And that'll be pretty much it. So the next time you guys see me, I may have a new baby, because I'm due to have a baby sometime within the next 2 weeks. I'm not sure when exactly, so I might have a little baby girl coming. And then B, I will be done with this project, and I will be going over it probably in the next recording. We're moving into Unit 3 next, if I'm not mistaken. That would be Ruby and Rails. There may be something else in there too that I'm not aware of. I would look right now, but I'm not allowed to show you the syllabus because it's course material. Don't want to get sued. So that being said, per usual, guys, if you're liking what you're seeing, if you're enjoying watching the journey, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, interact with the video, tell a friend, hey, there's this douchebag on YouTube who kind of finding interesting, and I'm learning a little bit. Well, he's learning. We'll watch him grow. So do all that stuff and ask any questions you need to in the comments. The usual bullshit. Love you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.